Ladies and gentlemen, introducing our 2016 California Wrestling Hall of Fame inductee, Mrs. Afsoon Johnston. Her presenter is her former college coach, Mr. Mike Birch. Born in Iran, Afsoon was the only child of an Iranian wrestler, Manu. Although women did not wrestle and did not even get to see wrestling, Manu taught his daughter wrestling moves in their home and helped develop a sincere interest in the sport. Her father spent this time studying in Germany and Austria for advanced degrees, and Afsoon was there with the family. He wrestled often in European events while overseas. The family returned to Iran in 1979 and was there for 5 years after the Iranian Revolution. Manu and his family were able to leave Iran in 1984 and moved to the United States, ultimately landing in San Jose, California. Afsoon went on to wrestling as a high school freshman at Independence High School, where she was the first and only girl wrestling on the boys' varsity team. She was coached by David Shade, father of NCAA champion, U.S. Open champion, and class of 2006 Hall of Fame inductee, Mr. Dan Shade. She survived the initial challenge of training with boys. At a time, girls rarely wrestled and was part of the team during all 4 years in high school. In 1989, Coach Shade brought Afsoon to a U.S. trials tournament run by a class of 2001 Hall of Fame inductee, Mr. Lee Allen. A pioneer in women's wrestling, Afsoon had competed her junior year in high school and would wrestle there against adult women. The winners would earn a spot on the U.S. team, which would compete in the 1989 World Championships, the first time the USA would field a women's wrestling freestyle team. Afsoon ended up making that USA team at 47 kilos. She was on a 5-athlete team from the United States, which was coached by 2 talented coaches, Rusty Davidson of New Mexico and Pavel Katzen of New York, who had been the 1988 Olympic Greco-Roman coach. It was held in Marly, Switzerland, alongside the men's freestyle and Greco-Roman World Championships. Afsoon had 2 matches in the tournament, losing to eventual runner-up of Japan, then defeating Sandra of Switzerland by injury default. This earned her the world bronze medal at her weight class and the lightest of the U.S. wrestlers in the medal rounds. She became the first U.S. medalist at Women's World Championships. 2 of her teammates secured silver medals, Asia and Leah. It was the start of a long and successful career for Afsoon. She continued wrestling in college, a member of the varsity men's team at UC Davis, when USA Wrestling began providing national team support for its women wrestlers. Afsoon could not be on the team roster anymore, but still trained with the men of the UC Davis campus. She also was active as a wrestling official in the local community and ended up officiating a college men's match when the referee for a UC Davis duel did not show up for the match. Afsoon added a world silver medal in 1990, which gave her 2 career medals, and continued competing on the national level for a decade. She ended up making 4 U.S. World Teams, won 3 U.S. Open national titles, and brought home international medals from events in France, Russia, and Canada. She trained for a number of years in Phoenix area as a member of the Sun Kids program. Afsoon retired from competition in 2000, 2 years before the IOC voted to add women's wrestling to the Olympic Games. She was married to Brian Johnson in 1998, and had her first son in 2001. Afsoon Johnston served the sport for a while longer on some USA wrestling committees and was on its board of directors through 2003. Then her major focus turned to her growing her family and her professional career as a physical therapist. In 2004, and during the Summer Olympics, when women's wrestling first made its debut, she had the second of her 3 children. She lovingly refers to her middle child as her Olympic gold medal. In the last few years, Afsoon Johnston has returned to active involvement in the women's wrestling program, going on tours both as coach and in the medical capacity. Her children had reached an age where she could devote time towards wrestling once again. In 2014, Johnson was one of the U.S. Women's World Team coaches who helped lead USA to a 3rd-place finish. She also had 3 individual medalists. Afsoon is in the women's coaching pool and looks forward to being involved with more U.S. teams in the future. I am happy to formally announce to all of you, Afsoon Johnston just recently sent Lynn Dyke an email on Monday, May 16th at 2:13 p.m. It read, "Hi Lynn, I'm looking forward to seeing you this Saturday. I am now officially the Women's Olympic Coach." I am flying directly from New York, from Beat the Streets Gala at the Times Square, but I'll see you on Saturday. Congratulations, Coach Johnston, for not only being named the Women's Olympic Coach, but for all that you have done. Ladies and gentlemen, inducted in the 2016 California Wrestling Hall of Fame, Mrs. Afsoon Johnston.
Thank you very much. I want to thank my husband, Byron Johnston, because without his support, this would not be possible for me. They say behind every successful man is a great woman. Well, behind every successful woman, there's a great man. So thank you, Byron, for that. As some of you may or may not know, I was born in Iran, a country that unfortunately does not have equal rights for women. Had I attempted to go out for the boys' high school wrestling team, I would have probably been stoned to death. But here in the United States, in California, I was allowed that opportunity. Prior to moving to the United States in 1984, I was wearing a burqa and had minimal human rights as a woman. In 1986, I showed up at Independence High School and wore a singlet for my first match against boys. A drastic difference from my burqa wearing days. I admit it may not have been received that well at first, even in California, but at least no one wanted to kill me for it. My coaches at Independent High School, Coach David Shade, Albert Perez, who's here tonight, Coach Anthony Palomino, who you guys just heard from earlier, Mr. Medal, and my teammates, Marco Sanchez, Dr. Marco Sanchez. They were all very supportive of having a girl on their high school wrestling team. And for that, I will always be grateful, because that's where it gave me my first start. After high school, I went on to UC Davis in order to continue my education and my wrestling career. I chose UC Davis because of its wrestling program. During my freshman year, the wrestling program was dropped due to Title IX issues. Wrestling was in danger because it was believed to be a sport for boys only. During that year, we actively fought that concept, and we were successful in getting wrestling reinstated at UC Davis. Today, wrestling is no longer considered a men's-only sport. Please note, women's wrestling is good for all wrestling. At UC Davis, I was coached by Coach Mike Birch, who is here today as well, and other great wrestlers, which also allowed me to reach the next level of international competition. I can boast that I earned the first world medal for the United States in women's wrestling history. Thank you. Thank you. My father was a wrestler and started me in this wonderful sport, but I don't think he ever imagined in his wildest dreams that tonight would happen for me. That you all here would acknowledge my wrestling career and induct me into the California Hall of Fame. Thank you.